foundations of our economy, but we're helping to raise living standards and put money back into people's pockets in every part of the country, and we couldn't be more excited about it.
Well, good luck with that. Look, I mean, you have been a campaigner for the poorest in society for a very long time. So it seems rather odd that you're sitting there defending a policy that the likes of Age UK, Citizens Advice, I've been campaigning on it myself, are pulling their hair out about. 780,000 pensioners on below £11,400 a year are not going to get the winter fuel payment because they don't get pension credit. There are systems that could be put in place to fix it. Why are you defending this?
Well, we are working really hard to put systems in place to fix it. Part of the intention behind the move that we've made is to deal with the £22 billion economic black hole. I won't dwell on that too much, Martin, because I know we've made that argument. I know you want to talk about the poorest, but making sure that we're targeting help at those who most need it, which is why we've introduced this.
In a heated live TV exchange, Martin Lewis confronted MP Lisa Nandy, exposing the harsh realities millions of UK pensioners face as hardship grips the nation. Energy bills are soaring, leaving many elderly citizens to choose between heating their homes or putting food on the table. This isn't just a financial debate, it's a matter of survival.
You have to accept you're not going to reach them because those are the people hardest to reach, so how are you going to protect them?
In fairness, you just said to me, you're not writing bloody letters. Well, we are. And I just wanted to explain that because I don't want people to think that for a moment we're going to leave people high and dry. For that group of people, there's never been a drive to get them onto pension credit. And you're right that it is extremely challenging. You have people, for example, who've got dementia or other reasons why they've not applied for pension credit. They need far more support to be able to navigate the system. That's why we're working with local councils all over the country. My council in Wigan is writing out to everybody who they think is eligible. We've gone through all sorts of routes, like we have people who are on the assisted bin collection list who we've identified as maybe a particularly vulnerable group. We're going door to door to make sure that if we're not getting a response, that we're going and knocking on people's doors and finding out whether they're eligible or not. And we're working with councils all over the country to make sure that happens. We think it's better to do that at community level rather than at government level, but we will of course adjust that if it doesn't work. So far though, the evidence is that it is.
No, I'm sorry, I disagree on that. So first of all, are all...
With the public watching, Lewis's passionate critique cast a harsh spotlight on the government's failure to uphold its promise to protect the most vulnerable. As the cost of living crisis deepens, this powerful moment underscores the urgency of addressing pensioners' struggles, making it clear that immediate action is needed to prevent further hardship during the coldest months of the year. This heated exchange erupted at a time when winter's chill is doing more than freezing temperatures and igniting a storm of nationwide frustration. Martin Lewis, widely respected for his straightforward financial advice, stepped into a new role as the people's advocate, fearlessly challenging politicians over their failure to protect those most vulnerable in this growing crisis.
Disagree on that. So first of all, are all councils doing it? But you say the evidence is, you're talking an uplift of 115%. You've gone from 20,000 a month claiming pension credit to 40,000 a month, but there are 780,000 people. You would need an exponential rise in the number of people claiming pension credit for those pensioners to claim this year. We have to accept, you have to accept, there will be many hundreds of thousands of the poorest pensioners under £11,400 income you will not reach this year. You are taking money out of their hands. Do you accept the truth? The reality is that's what will practically happen. I'm saying it, Age UK is saying it, others are saying it. So let's be honest, you're willing to accept that collateral damage of hundreds of thousands of poorest pensioners, many on dementia, not getting the winter fuel payment?
No, I'm not willing to accept that.
But it's going to happen.
It's one of the reasons why we've extended the cut-off point to apply until April next year, so that even if people don't realise right now, despite this sort of conversation happening on national media, even if they don't see this, if they don't realise, if they don't respond to the letters, if we don't manage to catch them door to door in the run-up to Christmas and they find out later that they were eligible, they can still apply and they will get it backdated. And the reason that we've done that...
With energy prices soaring and pensioners struggling to make ends meet, his sharp questioning cast doubt on the credibility of elected officials. The biggest question now is, can the promises made to the public truly be trusted Or are they just hollow words? As millions watch and wait for answers, this pivotal moment raises urgent questions about leadership, accountability, and the real meaning of safeguarding the nation's most vulnerable citizens. During his televised exchange with Lisa Nandy, Martin Lewis cut through political rhetoric with unyielding precision. He was assertive and relentless, and didn't merely highlight the struggles, but demanded accountability for the 10 million vulnerable pensioners grappling with soaring living costs.
Do you think the current council tax bans and system are fair?
But we are not going to be reforming or changing that. We've been really straight with people in our manifesto.
But the question is whether they're fair or not. I didn't ask you whether you're reforming it, I asked you whether they're fair.
There are many things that are unfair in life, Martin, as you know. I mean, I see right across my constituency the state of housing across the country, which is why we need to build more homes. People left waiting months and months on waiting lists in pain, suffering.
So am I understanding correctly? It is unfair that you won't be doing anything about it?
No, we're not going to be changing it. And let me set out why. I understand. I see it every single day, how many things we need to put right in this country. But we've got to be honest with people about what our priorities are. And our priorities are not to be raising income tax, VAT or national insurance, because that we think is the wrong approach. Our priority is to grow the economy. And that will take rightly a huge amount of time and political focus. Because what is all this about?
Lewis exposed the glaring disconnect between the government's grand promises and the harsh realities faced by elderly citizens forced to choose between heating and eating. His pointed questions left no room for evasion, shining a stark light on the urgent need for action. In this moment, Lewis became a voice for those suffering in silence, urging leaders to confront the crisis by making sure that they are targeting help at those who most need it.
You have to accept there will be many hundreds of thousands of the poorest pensioners under £11,400 income you will not reach this year. You are taking money out of their hands. Do you accept the truth? The reality is that's what will practically happen. I'm saying it, Age UK is saying it, others are saying it. So let's be honest, you're willing to accept that collateral damage of hundreds of thousands of poorest pensioners, many on dementia, not getting the winter fuel payment?
No, I'm not willing to accept that.
But it's going to happen.
It's one of the reasons why we've extended the cut-off point to apply until April next year, so that even if people don't realise right now, despite this sort of conversation happening on national media, even if they don't see this, if they don't
But Martin Lewis's tone was more than accusatory. It was a rallying cry of accountability, placing Lisa Nandy and by extension, Keir Starmer, squarely in the hot seat. This confrontation went beyond a war of words. It cast a glaring spotlight on urgent, unresolved issues demanding action, not just empty sympathies. Each pointed question from Lewis served as a direct challenge to the Labour leadership's integrity.
The big problem I have with this phrasing is the people who the government has said should get the winter fuel payment is those on pension credit, which is a state top-up to people on the lowest incomes. And up to 880,000 people on pension credit aren't claiming it. Now, by definition, almost, not quite, there's a couple of nuances, almost everybody entitled to pension credit will not be getting the full state pension, because if they did, they wouldn't get pension credit. Therefore, they'll be getting less than the full state pensions. So they'll likely be on the old state pension, which is a lower rise, and they won't be getting all of it. So the £900 figure doesn't actually bear a strong resemblance to what most of the people who are the poorest pensioners will actually get. And my big issue, you can look at this whole thing twofold. One, yes, I think the means testing for getting rid of winter fuel payment should be higher. They put it reliant on pension credit. That's basically people earning less than £11,400. But we still haven't got an answer.
His relentless focus drew national attention to the plight of those left in the cold by policy failures, urging immediate solutions to this growing crisis. But shifting from the charged atmosphere of the interview, the focus turns to Keir Starmer's earlier promises to pensioners, now cast in the stark light of perceived abandonment before stepping into power. Starmer's visits to pensioners' homes and his vocal empathy painted a picture of hope and commitment. However, the reality under his leadership tells a starkly different story. The widening gap between his reassuring words and subsequent actions has left many disillusioned. fueling frustration among those who once believed in his promises.
What the Chancellor did when she walked through the door next door was to audit the books. What she found was a £22 billion black hole this year. Now, she had a choice: pretend it isn't there, walk past it, or deal with it.
Now, I just want to
deal with it.
I just want to stop you there. I just want to stop you there. On that 22 billion, I want everybody watching this to know and understand that nearly half of that 22 billion, £9 billion, comes from decisions that your government has made to give many public sector workers pay rises above inflation, including junior doctors getting 22% of an increase over 2 years. So again, when it comes to winter fuel allowance, that was a choice. It was a political decision for the reasons that you say. You want to sort out the economy. But
Hugh's breach of trust has not only shaken faith in his leadership, but also highlighted the urgent need for tangible solutions to the challenges faced by the nation's most vulnerable. Factually, the cost of the broken promises of leadership is no longer mere whispers, but resounding laments reverberating across communities. Each unfulfilled pledge and unmet expectation erodes the trust once placed in Keir Starmer, transforming hopeful supporters into disillusioned critics.
Look, I'm apolitical. I look at individual issues and I talk about them, I snip at them if you like, and I will snip at all governments when they're doing things that I don't think are right. And when it comes to the winter fuel payments, while I absolutely understand the argument for getting rid of universality, and indeed multimillionaires do not need the winter fuel payment, my problem is we've gone from everybody to far too narrow a group. The eligibility criteria is far too narrow. People earning less than 11,300 quid is the very poorest. And those just above that threshold, those are the ones who will really be hurting. Now, when we were doing energy support systems in May 2022, it was when Rishi Sunak was the Chancellor.
As winter's grip tightens and the elderly face mounting hardships, the political fallout from these perceived betrayals grows more apparent, shaping a narrative of disappointment and demanding urgent rectification. The story of neglected promises weaves a somber tapestry of discontent, resonating deeply with affected voters and further straining already fragile loyalty to the Labour Party. While the party continues to emphasise its mantra of making difficult choices, public patience is wearing thin across social media forums and news platforms. Citizens are voicing their frustration, accusing the leadership of being disconnected from the harsh realities faced by millions, from pensioners forced to choose between heating and eating, for families watching their elders struggle. This disconnect has become intolerable. The once hopeful promises of care and support now ring hollow, leaving the Labour Party grappling with a growing tide of dissatisfaction. If things continue on its trajectory, this wave of discontent could reshape the political landscape and redefine public trust in leadership. This growing discontent is no longer confined to murmurs in isolated corners. It has become a resounding chorus, questioning the sincerity of political decisions. In addition, many believe these so-called difficult choices are driven more by political convenience than genuine necessity. With each policy announcement, the chasm between government actions and public expectations continues to widen, brewing a storm of frustration that shows no signs of dissipating. This dissatisfaction isn't a fleeting sentiment. It's a powerful force reshaping public opinion. The perception of leaders as indifferent to the struggles of ordinary citizens is eroding trust and galvanizing a demand for accountability. As the disillusionment deepens, the political fallout could have serious consequences. This rising wave of frustration may very well dictate the future political landscape, steering voters away from those perceived as out of touch and indifferent to their plight, in search of leaders who truly deliver. Meet Margaret, a 72-year-old retiree from Manchester whose story lays bare the human cost of flawed policies after a lifetime of dedication and hard work. Margaret found herself denied her winter fuel allowance for marginally exceeding the income threshold, a harsh example of how bureaucracy can fail those who need help the most. Her story is a poignant reflection of the emotional and financial toll many pensioners face as they navigate neglect in their most vulnerable years. "I've worked all my life, paid my dues, and now, when I need help the most, I'm left out in the cold," Margaret says, her voice trembling with frustration and despair. She describes the chilling interiors of her home as a direct result of policies that were meant to protect, not abandon her.
The budget may be behind them, but they still have a fight ahead. These profits, not people! These profits, not people!
Pressing for a rethink on the recently announced move to means test the winter fuel allowance.
The cost of withdrawing it across from most pensioners is that people will fall through those cracks. The people who don't apply for pension credit but are entitled, and then the people who are just above the level for pension credit, who then get absolutely nothing and really struggle on very, very little money a week, and they're the ones that will suffer.
Margaret's testimony resonates deeply, moving beyond abstract statistics and political debates to strike a powerful chord with anyone worried about their future or their loved ones. Her experience underscores the urgent need for compassionate, effective reforms in pension or welfare, shedding light on a system that must prioritise humanity over rigid thresholds. Going back to Martin Lewis, he has shifted from a personal finance expert to a passionate advocate for pensioner rights. Lewis, known for his straightforward financial advice, now uses his platform to call attention to the challenges faced by the UK's elderly, particularly those struggling with rising living costs. He highlights the severe impact of current policies and demands better protection for vulnerable pensioners. Lewis has become a vocal critic of government action, pushing for meaningful change and ensuring the needs of pensioners are not overlooked. Martin Lewis's passionate calls for change strike a powerful chord, with the public amplifying the voices of those often ignored by policymakers.
As we're racing towards summer, just a quick tip on sunscreen. When you get your sunscreen, turn the bottle around, because on the back you'll see a PAO number. It's usually 12 or 24 months. PAO stands for period after opening, and it's how long the sunscreen is still going to give you protection for once you've opened it. So then when you do open it, put a little note of what date, write that onto the sunscreen, and you'll know if you try to use it in a year's time whether it's still valid or not. And hopefully, if you've got 24 months, you won't need to buy a new one thinking, oh, I better chuck that away, it's too old, because it'll still be valid, and you save yourself a little bit of cash.
Through his platform, he brings critical issues to the forefront of national conversation, demanding accountability. Most importantly, he doesn't only highlight flaws, but actively proposes solutions, bridging the gap between the suffering of citizens and the legislative action needed to address it. His presence in the media and engagement on social platforms ensure that the struggles of pensioners remain a priority in public discourse. As a result, he has become an indispensable ally in their fight for justice, dignity, and reform from the government. Most importantly, Lewis's approach during this interview was both strategic and incisive, placing the Labour MP in a challenging position. He crafted his questions to reveal the disconnect between Labour's promises and their actual actions, demanding specific answers rather than allowing vague responses. Lewis's technique wasn't about confrontation for its own sake, it was a deliberate effort to uncover the truth and hold leadership accountable. Nandy's often hesitant and evasive replies highlighted her discomfort, contrasting sharply with Lewis's direct, fact-based questioning, whose stark contrast underscored the potential shortcomings of her party's policies and exposed cracks in their commitment to pensioner welfare. Overall, this interview not only intensified public scrutiny of Labour's promises to pensioners, but also showcased the power of the media in holding politicians accountable.
I've spoken to a former pensions minister about something that you used to be pretty outraged about, and that is the winter fuel allowance. Back in 2017, you visited a retirement housing complex and said that one of the things that stood out for you was that residents were rightly angry about the Tory threat to take away the winter fuel allowance. How come you voted in the House of Commons then to take away the winter fuel allowance from 10 million pensioners?
Look, I mean, I voted to bring it in the first place when pensioners were in much more poverty when we came into government in 1997 than they are now.
Through incisive questioning, Lewis exposed underlying issues enhancing public understanding of the nation's challenges. His approach set a new standard for how political figures should be questioned, demonstrating the media's role in fostering transparency and demanding better from those in power. If you enjoyed this political discussion, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating content.